Hello, welcome. Today I'm going to be showing you the fastest way to get off undisturbed isolation and the fastest way to get rid of the Great Depression. There are actually two different methods and they get off both around the same time. The method that gets rid of the Great Depression the fastest takes slightly longer to get rid of undisturbed isolation. The method that gets rid of undisturbed isolation has to eat the Great Depression penalties for longer, but does get rid of both slightly faster. So it does depend on which one you prefer, but I will show you both. We're going to do this in Iron Man. I'm not really going to bother with research. I mean, research doesn't matter, so you can just start with your basics and then do whatever you want. It's up to you. Same with construction. I would recommend building infrastructure in all of your resource states, excluding oil. Military factories, all I have to say is don't forget to put trucks into production. You don't start with any production. And then ships, do whatever you want. Your build is your build. This is specifically to get you off the Great Depression and undisturbed isolation as fast as possible. Either way, we are going to want to do a medium lobbying effort and then select Continue the New Deal. Doing it in this order allows you to actually click the button. While we wait for Continue the New Deal to finish, there are three methods of doing this. I'm going to show you two because the third is just the weakest. But we'll start with the third. The third is just doing Landon, which means you're not going to start with Continue the New Deal. You're going to start with doing some other random nonsense. See, nothing AF Landon does actually gives you war support, and he delays when you can do Neutrality Act, so you can't even come over here and do Selective Training Act, because you want to do Selective Training Act after you do Neutrality Act. So it's just overall a weaker path. You can get off the Great Depression slightly faster, but it takes you a lot longer to get off the giant wakes. It's just weaker. Part 3B is limited intervention. It's going to cost you 300 political power to get to. If you do limited intervention and war propaganda, you're going to have about 15% war support, which means you can spend 300 political power to go to early mobilization. And these focuses suck. This side is just way better. So not the method you want to go. The method you want to go always starts Continue the New Deal down to Agricultural Adjustment Act. The method we're going to do first, we then do Neutrality Act into War Department Selective Training Act, hold focus for Fair Labor Standards Act, then do Arsenal Democracy Giant Wake Scientist Haven, hold focus for Federal Housing Act. Doing it this way is the fastest way you can get off both. It'll take you 770 days to get rid of the Great Depression and the Giant Wakes both. The other method is after Agricultural Adjustment Act, we do Suspend the Persecution, Union Representation Act, Accumulate Wealth Tax, then hold focus for Fair Labor Standards Act, then do Neutrality Act, Old Age Pension, Guarantee the New Deal, Arsenal Democracy, Giant Wakes. Doing it that method takes 840 days, but you do get off the Great Depression a whole 230 days sooner. And you get a minus 5% consumer goods. However, this is very expensive. It takes a lot of political power. I consider the semi-communist path to be weaker. Okay, Continue the New Deal is done. We are going to assign Robert Taft. We are going to do another medium lobbying effort. And then we're going to do WPA. Okay, WPA is done. We want to do another medium lobbying effort. It's insurance. We'll do Agricultural Adjustment Act, and we'll go get the financial expert. Why? We don't have time to go get the WARE group, unfortunately. It's great and all, but it's going to slow us down by 140 days, so not really worth it. So we finished the Agricultural Adjustment Act. Now, one might argue that we're good. This is enough house support. I don't trust it. I'm going to pay farm subsidies. Like I said, insurance. We're going to do Neutrality Act now. It reduces our base war support by 5%. Here's the thing. Our base war support is 0, so this does nothing. It's better to do it now than later, because we will later have base war support, and this will reduce that. We don't want to do that. Also, I love farm subsidies because, like, the 3% consumer goods is basically free for the US. We're currently sitting at 69%. Without it, we'd be sitting at 66%. So, like, who cares? Okay, Neutrality Act is done. We're now going to do the War Department focus into Selective Training Act. Selective Training Act sets our base war support to 10%. This is why we want to do the Neutrality Act first. As for the political power, you can spend it on anything you want other than your military staff. You can afford the Air Reformer Genius for the 10 command power, but any of the 20s will cause you to delay doing your attaché to China, which you do not want to do. I'm going to do, I think, and improve worker conditions. Civs aren't very valuable to us right now. And then the rest, we can make one more buy realistically. So I think we could probably give refugee to the German scientists. Alrighty. Election of 1936, we're obviously going to go with the Democrats. No point in going for Landon right now because, well, we haven't gone that path anyways. Okay. Now we'll do Selective Training Act, get that base war support. You do want to watch this focus. If you do it too late, you might actually end up in a situation where you have more than 10 war support. If you have more than 10 war support, it does not set your base war support to 10%. If that happens and you're still below 15%, you can unassign your Pride of the Fleet. Ideally, that doesn't happen, but that is something you can do. So Selective Training Act just finished, and as you can see, we're now at 16%. So added just straight 10% war support. Now, we want to hold focus. We've done 3 focuses, that's 210 days. So if we wait 20 days, we'll be able to do the Fair Labor Standards Act, which should be March 16th. So March 16th is just coming up, and we can do the Fair Labor Standards Act. Alright, so the Chinese United Front is forming, which means Japan has done the Marco Polo Bridge incident, which means our timing is perfect. When we finish this in 5 days, we'll do Arsenal of Democracy. When that finishes, Japan will be at war with China. And if the game likes us, we'll have 30% war support. Also, once you've built all your infrastructure, you can build civs if you want. But otherwise, we do need 250, just in case the game likes us. Alrighty, we're getting close to the end of Arsenal of Democracy. Let's go improve relations with China. We need it to be about 20. Alrighty, there's Japan declaring war, so we can send an attaché, 10% war support. That is going to put us at exactly 30. 31 once everyone joins. So, because we've sent the attaché, we can do the giant wakes. July of 37. This is the fastest you can do the giant wakes off of Japan declaring war. Okay, giant wakes is done, October 2nd, 1937, and now we're on partial mode. That's why we save political power, and we can do one of these 3 focuses. A research slot, or we can get ourselves 5 mills. I'm going to go for the research slot. Also, now that we're on partial mode, you could swap to building mills. Now, maybe at the beginning of 38, I mean, we have 131 owned civs. Eventually, we're going to end up with about 5% consumer goods. So you could do it now, if you wanted to. I'm going to build some civs. We're building towards 41, so it's not unreasonable to build them right now. When Scientist Haven finishes, which is right now, we are going to hold focus for 20 days. We've done 3 focuses since we finished Fair Labor Standards Act. So, Federal Housing Act. In 60 days, the Great Depression will be gone, and we'll be on partial mode. This is the fastest you can do both. I'll show you the faster method to get rid of the Great Depression, though, once we finish this focus. So we're about to finish Federal Housing Act. It should either be February 28th or March 1st is when it finishes. March 1st. March 1st, 1938. That's the fastest you can get rid of this. Not the fastest you can get rid of the Great Depression, though. From here, your build is your build, but this is the fastest you can unlock the US. Now, you might have had to have waited for the giant wakes. If you couldn't have done the giant wakes before this, then you would have done an extra research slot and then be doing it now, and you'll be off undisturbed isolation by May 1st, 1938. That is more likely to happen if you're playing multiplayer, because Japan's going to declare later. They're going to declare closer to the beginning of 38 usually. So anyways, let's go back to the main menu. USA again, Iron Man. We'll call this one the slightly commie path. So setup at the beginning is the exact same. It's still a largely normal US game. You do your medium lobbying effort. You do continue the New Deal down to Agricultural Adjustment Act. You put whatever you want into production, as long as it includes AA and trucks. You research whatever you want, as long as you keep doing your production efficiency cap tech. Okay, so we finished the WPA, and I said everything up to the Agricultural Adjustment Act is the same, but I lied. We're going to do the Agricultural Adjustment Act, but do not spend the political power. We need 150. We can do a medium lobbying effort, because we don't actually have enough support in the House. We need 261. We do not currently have enough, and this will cause some to go into opposition. Now, you could probably chain small lobbying efforts, but medium lobbying efforts are more impactful. It is more time efficient. So, Agricultural Adjustment Act is done. We are doing the slightly commie path, so we're going to go suspend the persecution. And again, you might want to do another medium lobbying effort and pay farm subsidies. I don't have enough House support right now to continue doing this. Already, suspend the persecution is done. This is why we saved political power. We need to appoint the Communist Revolutionary. This allows us to do Union Representation Act. We need to keep him in power for one focus. That's it. Because we're doing Union Representation Act, we don't actually have to do any of these lobbying efforts, the farm subsidies. The Union Representation Act just gives us the support in Congress we need, basically for the rest of the game. Already, election. We're going to go with the Democrats. People have spoken, and we got more support in the House. I don't know. It seems entirely random what happens there. I know when I used to reach out to the WARE group, I'd end up at like 120. Okay, Union Representation Act is done. We can now do accumulate the wealth tax. With this selected, we can unappoint this dude. We don't need any more communist support, and this will not cancel. Focus will continue even when the requirements are no longer met, so we don't need a communist revolutionary anymore. As for this one, I would go with the top one. Going to the bottom one will move you closer to a civil war. The top one, you will guaranteed avoid it. So it's just the better option. So we're now at a crossroads. What to do, what to do. At 100 political power, we can ban communism. And this gives us a permanent minus 0.5 communist support. And we need to get rid of the communism because to do Neutrality Act, we need to be over 95% support for democracy. This will cost us 5 stability. If we appoint the democratic reformer, though, it's going to take longer. I think for the essence of time, you should ban communism. It's also 50 political power cheaper. So now we have 0 communist support in the United States. This will give us 5%, but because we've already banned it, that'll tick down. If we really wanted to min-max, we would have saved 10 days before we selected this focus so that we would have had the communist revolutionary selected for 10 less days. It's not necessary to do that, but it is something you could have done. Okay, so we've accumulated the wealth tax. So we've now gotten rid of 2 parts of the Great Depression, and we've gotten a minus 5% consumer goods. This is making up for the fact that we were not able to appoint the financial expert. Now we wait. We wait 20 days, March 16th, same timing as if we'd done the other path. Problem is, the other path is a focus ahead of us. The other path has already done the Neutrality Act. Either way, we're going to get rid of the Great Depression, and then we need to do the Neutrality Act. At 100 political power, I am going to do and improve worker conditions, simply because we have really low base stability. The other path would be sitting at 100% right now. Fair Labor Standards Act is done, so now we're going to do Neutrality Act into Guarantee the American Dream. This is a flat gain-based war support, so it's actually more forgiving than the other path, but either way we need to do Neutrality Act first because we're still at 0% base war support. So because we've gotten rid of the Great Depression, we've got a good amount of factories. Problem is, we still have the minus 50% construction speed penalties. We have really bad construction speed. So we've started getting the Chinese United Front events, so not a bad time to start improving relations with China. We are going to have to send them an attaché. Okay, Japan declared war on China, we can send them an attaché. This puts us up to 20% war support, except for escalating the war gives us like 2% base war support. So finishing the Neutrality Act when we did just lost us 2% war support. But you can't do these focuses if you've done the Neutrality Act. So you'd have to delay the Fair Labor Standards Act to prevent that. Alrighty, guarantee the American Dream, we need that 10% base war support. Now, I made a big deal about being under 20%, but Italian claims in Yugoslavia will bump world tension high enough that it won't matter. So, after guarantee the American Dream, do not continue to do any more of these. You will put yourself into a civil war. You do not want to be in a civil war. So we're at exactly 30, except for we're 2 focuses from finishing the giant wakes. The other path, we're already done the giant wakes, and the next focus we'd be doing right now would be Federal Housing Act. So, we are about 60 days slower. Obviously, you're going to want to make sure you have 150 political power when you finish this focus. I've just chosen not to do anything else just to make sure, but clearly you're going to have 200 political power you could have spent. So I completely could have appointed a high commander too, and potentially even a third. Alrighty, so Giant Wakes, April 30th, 1938. 2 months later, and we can go to partial mob. Funnily enough, regardless of which method you do, if you build the infrastructure and then build civs in the 100% states, you'll actually be at the same civ count in June of this year, regardless of method. But the other method, you have a lot more political power because you don't have to waste 150 on the communist revolutionary. You don't necessarily have to do ban communism. Anyways, those are the 2 fastest ways that don't include the Washington Naval Treaty exploit, which I did do a video on. I'll link in the description. You can get to War Eco with no Great Depression, September of 36. Completely not broken. Only requires a little war with Japan. Either way, I will be using this method to do a comparison of building civs to intentionally convert to mills versus just swapping to mills in June of 38. Because the US gets a minus 50% civilian to military factory conversion cost reduction, plus they have a dude for it. The armament organizer gives another minus 20%, plus total mob gives another 30%. Add that all up, that's minus 100%, which means you can convert a civ to a mill in 1 day. And some people think that that is something you should intentionally do. And by intentionally do that, I mean like they will build like 300 civs, build a couple of mills normally, and then convert the civs. We're going to look at how bad of an idea that is in my next video. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.